The 22 long rifle is the single most popular caliber in history. More shooters shoot the 22 long rifle than any other. Throughout the years, there have been many firearms chambered in 22 long rifle. Bolt actions, semi-autos, pump actions, just to name a few. The 1022, the Ruger Standard, the Colt Woodsman, all extraordinarily popular and legendary firearms. Now today, we're taking a look at a fairly obscure 22 caliber handgun, the Smith and Wesson 48. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Plinking is some of the most fun you can have as a shooter. The 22 long rifle really is popular because it is cheap. You can get a 500 round brick of 22 cartridges for about 20 bucks. Compare that to 9mm. You can get 50 cartridges routinely for 10 bucks. So yes, you can shoot 22s far more than you can shoot any other cartridge. This pistol here was one that I found at a gun shop. It was one that was for a very reasonable price, and when I first saw it, it was love at first sight. This pistol just had the lines, it had the weight, it had the feel, and it had the balance of something amazing. So with that, let's go to the tabletop and take a close look at it.
The Smith and Wesson Model 48 started production in 1959 and continues on up to today, and can be acquired from the Smith and Wesson Classics line. This is a 1959 vintage, and it's what is referred to as a no-dash, as in it was one of the very first ever released. This is a full-framed, double-action revolver that superficially resembles the Smith and Wesson Model 10. This is the 6-inch version and features an adjustable front and rear sight, a blued finish that has stood the test of time quite well, with a very gracefully aged wear pattern. The trigger and hammer are color case hearted, and the hammer itself has these little spikes for ease of engagement. The markings on this revolver are excellent as well, and one has gotta love the markings here. 22 Magnum Rimfire cartridge. At some point between 1959 and when I acquired this revolver, Hogue rubber grips were added, and they work quite well. Sure, wood grips look pretty and all, but for long shooting sessions, the rubber grips are far more comfortable. The cylinder is swung out by pushing here, and as you can see, the cylinder is a bit hefty to take the increased pressures of the 22 Magnum cartridge. The firearm itself is a bit on the hefty side as well, as it's 100% steel and weighs about as much as a centerfire revolver would. This means that the recoil is limited, and that when practicing with this revolver, you get the added benefit of shooting a handgun with the same weight, more or less, as a larger centerfire revolver. As this is a revolver, you will need to not do that much disassembly when cleaning. But if you happen to find one of these excellent handguns for cheap, one thing to keep in mind is that you need to keep this area clean, as it likes to fill up with powder fouling, and the more fouled it gets, the harder it is to extract spent cartridges. One other way to know that this is a classic revolver is the fact that the barrel is pinned. After a while, this would be eliminated as a cost-saving measure. For the longest time, I had no idea why there was a Spanish patent mark on the side of the gun. But thanks to Othias over at C & Arsenal, I now know. In Spain at one time, there was a patent law that stated that the only valid patents were the ones in Spain, not anywhere else. And in the Ayabar region of Spain, many copies of famous firearms, including the S&W Model 10, were made. Smith & Wesson, as you would expect, did not like losing money, and thus started patenting their firearms in Spain. Hence the Spanish patent mark. Finding information on this rather obscure revolver has been rather difficult. I have found references that it was first shipped with 2 cylinders, one 22 mag and one 22 long rifle. I found other references that they only did that for the first year of its production. In practice, with this cylinder at least, one can chamber both 22 long rifle and 22 mag. It came to me that this cylinder could potentially have been modified in such a way as to chamber both. After many years of shooting it, I've seen no indications that it cannot shoot both. So it could have been that the cylinders were so well made that the 22 long rifle cylinders were superfluous. Either way, this example here can chamber and shoot both quite well. There were a number of reasons why I was able to pick up this particular revolver for cheap. One, the finish had worn over time, and there were a few nicks and scuffs here and there, but there are also two other minor issues with the revolver as well. The ejector rod likes to come loose during shooting, however it takes a good number of rounds to work itself loose, so it's no big deal. The timing is also off. Timing refers to the synchronization between cocking the hammer and turning the cylinder. My double action timing is off, so sometimes when I shoot the revolver double action, the revolver will not fire. The single action timing is still on, and I only ever shoot this revolver single action anyway, so once again, no big deal. And lastly, the revolver came with aftermarket grips, thus lowering its value even further. For a shooter, this revolver is perfect. It still looks good and shoots amazingly, but it's not worth as much as a never-before-shot pristine model. When hunting up classic firearms, or just firearms in general, non-pristine firearms can be the way to go, as they generally cost less and can be fixed depending upon the issue, and a number of my favorite firearms were so-called diamonds in the rough. The .22 long rifle cartridge dates back all the way to 1887 and was designed by J. Stevens and Tool Company. There are numerous manufacturers of this ammo today, and it can be found in a wide variety of loadings. Today, we're going to be shooting a bunch of them. I didn't count how many, I just grabbed a couple handfuls and put them in a bullet box. That is how little I have to care about how many I shoot. The .22 long rifles I'm going to be shooting today are standard pressure CCI Blazer brass with a 40 grain unjacketed lead bullet. The difference between standard versus high pressure ammo is that high pressure ammo has a higher velocity than standard pressure ammunition. Today I'm also going to be shooting 7 cylinders of .22 Magnums. 7 cylinders only, mainly because Magnums ain't cheap. A box of 50 Magnum cartridges will run you about $10. That's the same amount as 9mm cost. So I very seldom shoot Magnums. In fact, it has been many a year since I last shot some, and I'm only shooting some now for the purposes of this video, so y'all better appreciate it. The .22 Winchester Magnum Rimfire, otherwise known as .22 MRF or just simply .22 Mag, was designed in 1959 by, you guessed it, Winchester. Upon its release, it was the most high-powered rimfire cartridge available. It was at that time able to drive a 40 grain bullet at 2,000 feet per second, and had longer range, flatter trajectory, and greater kinetic impact than the .22 long rifle. The .22 Magnums that I'm going to be shooting today are a smattering of Winchester Super X's and CCIs.
The target we're using today is a standard accuracy target, and it will be placed 25 yards away.
The 48 is quite accurate. I shot a little high, but I was still able to get an absolutely amazing grouping nonetheless. Now, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to load up 2 more cylinders of mags, and I'm going to shoot it one-handed double action, and then I'm going to shoot it as rapidly as possible single action. And yes, that was a little bit painful when my hand slipped off the ejector rod. Looks like I could do a little better as I was able to get quite the groupings. And as you can see, the timing was a bit off on the double action trigger, but still more or less functional. So now let's load up some 22 long rifles and penetrate some more paper. As I have more experience with 22 long rifles than I do 22 Magnums, I was able to get some great groupings right off the proverbial bat. Now it's time for some 22 fun times. And it's time to load up a bunch. As with 22R, you can get in the zone and just start loading up like a bloody machine. And before you know it, 200 rounds have been expended and you are standing in a brass snowdrift. So what you are going to see in just a moment is the tail end of my range session. That's a lot of little holes, and as you can see, the 48 is a bloody laser gun for how accurate it is. That is due to the longer sight radius you get with a 6-inch barrel. The pistol's weight and balance ensures that you can both get and stay on target easily. Now, let's turn it over to Gramps and let him get in on the fun. Unlike in previous videos, you will be able to see his hits easier due to me using the most advanced piece of shooting tech of all time, a purple marker. And with said purple marker, I will be marking locations on the target for him to shoot at. Top for mags and bottom for long rifles.
Oh, it's a 6-shooter. Nice gun, you ought to give it to me.
I don't think so.
Oh.
Dud. that was a dud.
They're kind of antiquated. Okay, I gotta shoot the fire.
Correct.
Sound like that water in it.
I know. That was weird.
He did an amazing job with that revolver, and you can see just why he wants the bloody thing. But as always, he ain't getting it. Without a doubt, the Smith and Wesson Model 48 is a horribly unsung revolver. It's dependable, it's accurate, and it is damn fun to shoot. If you happen to find one for a good price, I highly recommend snapping it up. And so, I am Generallotz, wishing you good, number 1, Mark III, and good M9130, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed my review of the Smith & Wesson Model 48, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you these awesome firearm reviews.